last part of the paragraph that talked about like Mr. Matimba, right? Like starting like on the same page, the author talked about the encounters with the white citizens, right? Yeah, I think maybe instead of that you could, you could sort of wrap up this paragraph. Because I think you've actually done a really good job of like analyzing those two quotes. Like you gave yourself room to really tease them apart, you know, which is good. So like you don't want to take away from like the really great analysis of those two quotes by just sort of adding on more. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. So I am deleting this selected chunk.
Okay.
That's 6 lines on the same page too. So I will add a sentence. Consequently, Zimbabwean children felt as though they must be extraordinary at school to not risk expulsion because bidirectionally expulsion might foretell their looming poverty.
Yeah, actually that does kind of wrap up the paragraph because you're talking about the connections between poverty and education. Like that's actually, like you explain that connection very clearly there. So I think that's actually fine.
Yes. Yes, I agree. So should I also take out consequently because I feel like we used enough transitions in this paragraph.
Yeah, either way, I don't think it really makes too much of a difference either way. I think it reads just fine without consequently, but if you feel like it is helpful for the reader, then, you know, I think that's up to you.
No worries. So I'm going into thirdly paragraph.
Let me read through this. Right, yeah, womanhood is sort of abnormal. Okay, cool. So, I like I think the second half of the paragraph works really well to sort of show what you're saying about how women are often portrayed as like emotionally unstable, right? Like how Nyansha goes to a therapist, but like all of the men who have issues aren't dealing with them, right? Yeah, so I think that works really well. The one thing that I am questioning here really is like, you have this sort of really long quote about like Tambu starting her period and then how she like got her sanitary napkins from her family and how she like included it into her hygienic routine. And I guess I'm like not quite seeing the like how does that quote really demonstrate the point of the paragraph about like how women are seen as like unstable and crazy? Does that question make sense?
Yes, makes sense. I know what you're talking about. I'm just so now I figured out, you know, this quote, I began to menstruate and then it ends with them to become a necessary part of my yes. So
Yes.
my reason for having this is because I was actually going to ask you how to include a quote that extends more than 4 lines.
Yeah, I do have an answer for that. You basically make it into a block quote, which I can show you how to do. But yeah, so I can show you that in a second. But you know, before you decide to keep it in, tell me why you wanted to sort of include this longer quote.
So obvious reason is because it portrayed Zimbabwean women as congratulating periods, which I do not feel all cultures do, and this might be seen as a deviant or crazy behavior because menstruation, to be honest, is just a normal part of becoming a woman, but then they are taking it as if this is an achievement or something like.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that feels slightly different from the rest of the paragraph because it's like, you know, this actually kind of portrays something a little bit feminist, right? Like that they are celebrating this moment of like transitioning from girlhood to womanhood, that they are supporting her, right? That there's like this, that there's a culture of support surrounding this rather than just seeing it as taboo, as not talking about it, as thinking it's, you know, unclean, all that stuff, right? So it feels like actually this is a more feminist moment in the text. Whereas the rest of your paragraph is talking about how, you know, women are sort of like seen as unstable and crazy, right? So, yeah, like I would say if you want to keep this quote in, I might, you know, put it in a different place just because it's, it feels like it's doing something differently than what the rest of your paragraph is doing.
Yes, I totally get your point. I will remove this for now. So,
Okay.
yes, sentence goes like this. Hence, whites might call Zimbabwean women crazy for dealing with menstruation in their cultural method, and that younger girls heard about it. The preceding quote portrayed menstruation as impure. The author added blah blah blah.
Yeah, so I think the hence whites may, what is it, hence whites may call Zimbabwean women crazy for sentence, I think is your context for the long quote, so you probably don't need that there. Right, isn't that sort of describing that long quote?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you could probably sort of put that with the long quote, and then the rest of the paragraph, I think, makes sense as is.
Oh, so I only need to delete the preceding quote sentence before the author edit.
No, I think that one you can keep because you're talking about like the preceding quote is, I knew too that the fact of menstruation was a shamefully unclean secret, right? I think that, and then you're like the preceding quote portrayed menstruation as impure. I think that is fine. Yes, the sentence you just highlighted, that's the one that I think goes specifically with the other quote that you just pulled. Cool. Yay. Good. Awesome. Do you want to look at your conclusion really quickly?
Sure.
Cool. So, in conclusion, African womanism from white feminism. Good. Advocate for African illiteracy. Ooh, we don't want to advocate for illiteracy.
Oh, I think what I mean, I'm pretty sure what you know what I meant, but you know, as you remember, I typed this essay last week, you know, without resting, so like it might sometimes have certain weird sentences.
How would you replace that word advocate for there?
I mean, the readers must distinguish African womanism from white feminism. Advocate for African illiteracy or what is this? This is so funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think you just need a different word there in order to.
What I was saying basically, I'm pretty sure you knew too, was saying that, you know, things like African, you know, Africans' lack of, you know, full feminism and their prevalent poverty or low education can be explained by, you know, these things. I mean, African illiteracy and school enrollment, and they yes. So
So maybe like understand like the causes of, or you know, so the readers are distinguishing between these two things. They are, I think maybe understanding that, right, and then contemplating the rationales behind,
and contemplate the rationales behind African women facing psychiatric disparity and the absence of validation from society.
Good.
Hence, the solution to African women's poverty would be cognitively restructuring themselves via soliloquy, that they, as women, can do what men.
Cool. Let's see. The most significant takeaway is that African women must believe in themselves, especially at times when whites insinuate that African women are not devoted to sufficient government. Good. I love the way you end that. Like, that's a really strong way to conclude. That's good.
Well, where is that?
The very last sentence, right? When you say, the most significant takeaway is that African women must believe in themselves, especially at times when whites insinuate that African women are not devoting sufficient endeavor. I think that's a strong, like, ending with, you know, that African women must believe in themselves, I think is strong. Yeah, cool. And like we've gotten it down to 3 pages, which the assignment was to write 2 to 3 pages, so perfect.
Actually, on my end, it is saying 2 sentences on page 4, so I will need to get rid of one more thing.
That's okay. I mean, 2 sentences on page 4 is not a big deal. I think that you've done well. Yeah, I think that the rest is fine.
So what did you feel about this part? We should take her home and be firm with her, and then this exhibited that even a psychiatrist normalizes a Zimbabwean girl's psychopathology by assuming that this merely mirrors her home environment. In contrast, a male character does not warrant a psychiatrist's attention. in the first place, when he fails to think neutrally, the author specified words like always and never were meaningful to my father, who thought in absolutes and whose mind consequently made great leaps in antagonistic directions when it leapt at all. And then I did not write any sentence afterward. This is the end of thirdly paragraph, right before in conclusion.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely add a sentence here that sort of wraps this up. I quite like this section because it makes it really clear that, like, you know, like you said, the psychiatrist is normalizing Nyasha's pathology, right? Like, she says, like, there's no way that this person can be sick. Like, they, you know, you just have to sort of be stricter with her, right? Like, there's, yeah, they're not taking her seriously at all. But then I like the sort of in contrast sentence as well. Like, you know, we're not even worried about, like, when men exhibit, you know, these types of symptoms. It's not even an issue, right? That's just how they normally are. Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of a wrap-up sentence, you could do something like, you know, this evidence shows the discrepancy between the way that women and men are treated in terms, like, when it comes to mental health or something like that, you know.
Yes, so the other day I just skimmed through your message about coding, because always and never were already in the code, so I did like this, assuming I'm correct.
Yeah, you did that correctly. That looks good. Talk about today?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm literally turning this in, that's why.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, go for it.
Oh. Am I correct that this final paper, you know, if I click this link, it will give me the requirements and rubrics?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's that one's ready to go. I might still make a few small changes to it, but I think that the overall gist is ready. I sort of like put it together recently, and I need to make a couple of small changes, but yeah, it's basically ready to go.
Turn that in. So I am, yes, here I already have it open. So here's my Turkey feminism essay. I added a new section called I did not email you about this because I literally did this right before joining this call. So weaknesses, yes, because we can meet frequently. That's why I don't message all the things I do.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely. That makes sense.
Weaknesses of the literature. So the Dundar and Alverdi 2023 study could have applied an unbiased sampling technique instead of a small snowball sampling. The Dundar and Alverdi 2023 study also failed to determine temporal precedence. In other words, the researchers are obscure about whether or not the decreased procreation rate is the aftermath of the COVID anxiety. For example, Dundar and Alverdi 2023 reminisced the statistics that fewer women were seeking procreation since 2016, thereby hinting that the COVID anxiety and the decreased procreation rate cannot be cause and effect respectively.
Good. Yep, that all makes sense. That all is good. I have no comments.
Oh. Oh. So yes, do I need to explain what temporal precedence is?
I mean, I think you kind of did, right? Like you said, in
Yes.
other words, the researchers are obscure about whether or not the decreased procreation rate is like caused by COVID anxiety, right? Like you, yeah, I think you've already explained it, and then you're like, basically, they say, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yes, I did that intentionally because in my obviously as a psychology major, we use temporal precedence when we cannot establish causation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that sounds great.
do I get rid of the word "the" in front of COVID?
Yes, yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Because I just wasn't sure. That's why I put like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am pulling up because there is another